An affordable rent means a person should pay no more than 30% of their income towards rent. What that means in San Francisco is a person for a studio who's at 30% of AMI, and AMI stands for area median income, pays about $673 for a studio apartment. And then a person who's making a higher income, like let's say a family of four, making about $100,000 every year, and living in a 3-bedroom apartment, they pay about $20,000 every month, and that's including utilities. So the range of incomes for people living in affordable housing starts from $27,000 and goes all the way up to $102,000, and that varies depending on the household size. Some examples of people earning these incomes are a retiree receiving Social Security, a cashier living alone, a nursing assistant with a child, a housekeeper and a janitor with 2 children, or like an entry-level police officer with a stay-at-home partner and a child. Like that's kind of the demographic.
Oh man.
Your target is for the income is 27K to 1,000.
102,000. So there's sometimes questions like who gets to live there, and there's different. A lot of times we ask like, oh, how many people from our neighborhood can end up living there? And the answer is it really depends on the financing on the project. So it could vary. There's a neighborhood preference program within San Francisco, and that could vary between usually it's around 20 to 25%. That's what we see, and it could go higher. But a lot of times, because of the funding layers from the state, it becomes difficult to increase neighborhood preferences due to fair housing issues. One of the things that I think we've heard a lot is about 2550 Irving and affordability and policy requirements on the project. We are proposing a 98-unit building, which is 7 stories tall, and that has gotten a lot of criticism from a lot of the immediate neighbors because of the density and scale. So we wanted to kind of explain that by saying that a lot of our development is driven by several factors. The project is financed using several different financing sources. The first one, the biggest one, is called the California Tax Rate Allocation Committee, also known as TCAC, and also the California Debt Allocation Limit Committee, CIDLA. So both of them are state agencies. They're heavily regulated, and they contribute to a very large portion of the project financing. The second one is the Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development. So in San Francisco, we call it MOCD. And the Irving project in particular was financed using 2019 Measure A funds. I think that was a voter-approved fund, and there was a NOFA which was released by the Mayor's Office back in 2019 that TNDC applied for and received an award for the 2550 Irving project. And then the third financing source is from the state housing and community development, and they have like a dozen. They have about a dozen programs. Is there a form that we're being used here? Yeah. You need to use the phone that's being used. I did. Robert.
I think you gotta move your side.
The computer so that you don't. Okay.
The phone that's right next to your mouse pad.
Okay. So then the other thing, the third financing source that I was talking about is the State Housing and Community Development Department. They have several different funding programs, and we're contemplating using either one of two right now. One is called the Multifamily Housing Program, and the other one is called the Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities Program. So that is still to be determined. It takes, like I said, it takes 1.5 years for us to put together our financing, and that's dependent on a lot of factors. All that being said, a lot of these programs really want us to focus and target people with lower AMIs and produce units which are deeper targeted and at lower AMIs. So about 25% of the units at 2550 Irving will be reserved for formerly homeless households. And that means like people at or below 30% of area median income. And the remainder will be spread between 30% to 80% AMI, averaging about 60. But we try, GNDC and NoCD both have a strong policy of trying to go as deep with targeting as possible. So we try to have units at or below 50% AMI to the maximum extent possible. So in order to make all of that work, one of the things that is really preferred by state programs is density and scale. They really want to see projects which are larger. It just makes them much more appealing to the state agencies. So that's just one thing I wanted to share. And then the other thing is just there's a tremendous need for housing right now in San Francisco and throughout the Bay Area, actually throughout California almost. But traditionally, a lot of the affordable housing has been concentrated on the east side of San Francisco. And so now there's a push policy-wise to have more housing on the west side. I think that there were about 4,400 applicants from the Sunset applying for affordable housing in the last few years, and only there's only 18 units in District 4, which were built in the last 10 years. And so I think it's time to kind of start building towards that because the goal is really high, and San Francisco is behind the housing goals. In terms of like our community meetings, I think I've seen a few at several of the meetings. We've had the first meeting back in January of 2021. The second one was in March of 2021. The third one was in April. After that, we've had several one-off conversations, sometimes with the supervisor, where I think I've seen a few of you guys present. And because of COVID, a lot of the meetings which were hosted by TNBC were all virtual. And so now we are trying to contemplate our next meeting, but we're not sure whether it'll be virtual or in person, that we're still trying to figure out. And I think with that, like I'll pause and I'm open for questions and answers.
Can I just ask with regard to TDNC's projects? I mean, I know this is one here. How many already in Sunset or District 4?
This is the first one in
This is
District
the
4.
first one. And in other districts, we have 11 districts. So, you know, some of them much more dense, you know, kind of like where you originally got your name down, Tenderloin. But how about the other districts?
So we have
like
a project under development right now, which is in D1, so which is in the Richmond, on Geary and 6th, I think. We have another one which is on Stanyon in the Panhandle. We have one which is in the Booth Valley right now, which is about will begin construction the next year or so. We have several projects in the Mission and the Thermal. We also have a project in Mission Bay. We have several. We have some in the pipeline in Candlestick and the Hunters Point area. That is years out probably. But yeah, so we work all across the city. Slowly we're expanding. Like I think the bulk of our current buildings are in the Tenderloin. But I think we have almost an equal presence. I wouldn't say equal, but we are growing our presence in Mission and Sun.
Okay, so it's safe to say that you're trying to spread it out throughout the city.
Yeah, I think that's the policy. Yeah,
Okay.
That's the policy that the city is really trying to incorporate and march forward with.
And the makeup of the building at 2550 Irving is going to be how many proposed right now for
Right
like
now we
single
have-
family? I mean, single room, single
Yeah,
bedroom,
good
two,
question. So right now we have about 98 units proposed. More than I don't have the exact numbers, but let's say 50% of them. So about 50 units will be 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms, and the remaining will be a mix of studios and 1 bedrooms. So we are aiming for this to be a large family project. There's a funding criteria to that as well. So we are trying to make it like a large family project, which basically requires us to have a larger number of 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
And how about parking?
Right now we're proposing, there's 11 surface parking spots proposed, which we have heard from a lot of the neighborhood that's not enough. And so we are looking into ways of trying to use some technology to try to maximize those spaces and convert them into more.
So there are only 11 Right now, there are only 11 spaces for 98 units.
Correct.
Okay. On the potential tenants that are there, you're saying that, I heard the number roughly 40% is kind of the number that we're looking for, so that are like local neighborhood Sunset residents.
That
Is
would be
roughly?
ideal, but that's really dictated by a lot of financing, which
Yes.
will be there in the project. So typically, we end up between 20-25%.
Okay,
But again, like I think that will be to the different.
okay,
We
so-
have heard like loud and clear that people want it to be for a neighborhood, and that's very consistent. We hear that in every neighborhood we work in.
right. But then, so the other, let's say, potential 60% or whatever the financing works out to be, where would you draw those people from?
So it depends. So for the units which are for families with prior experiences of homelessness, they are coming from a coordinated entry system, which is a central system managed by the city of San Francisco. There's a very long wait list, and people who are the most housing ready get sourced, and they go through our screening process, and our criteria and background checks and everything, and then we house them. And then for the other units, there's also it's almost like a lottery system, but you have to be living and working within the city in order to.
Okay, and then is this a type of project that, I think there's concerns that I hear from people. They say like, they don't want to make this, a place where people are misbehaving and so forth. So what kind of proposals, what kind of, rules and regulations do you have governing the tenants of this that are awarded this housing?
So we are definitely invested in meeting the requirements of our tenants and making the housing successful for them. We want people to stay there long term. So GNPC has several years of managing properties. Like I said, we have 40 properties under our supervision. All of our properties have a lot of staff. So we have a property manager, we have an assistant property manager, we have desk clerks. So we have 24/7 coverage at the properties. So we monitor who goes in and out. We also provide a lot of services. So we have 2 or 3 social workers on site, who swap. They swap between all the different programs. So there's one person who would work on urban agriculture and farming. There's one person who would work with tenants on different needs, and then there's case managers. You have a full team of people. So each property is staffed very robustly, and again, all of that, the details are to be TBD, but typically, on every project, we have social workers, we have desk clerks, we have property managers who are on site, who help provide services to the people and help them stay and avoid the issues that we're talking about. We have been very successful in the past, so I don't see a reason why we wouldn't be here.
Will there be police presence in these units?
Not on site. So police won't be present at the property 24/7. We don't see the need for that.
Will there be security cameras?
Yes.
And where will they be located?
The security cameras are usually located on the outside of the building, so that we can see who goes in and out. Just you would have security in your house, we would make sure that our building is also secure.
How about in the parking lot and the playground area?
Yeah, we definitely have in outdoor areas, we have monitoring.
Okay, you say you guys are right now planning for 11 spots. And if you're going to change it, what is the targeted parking capacity?
We're trying to meet, I think we've heard 25.25 parking ratio. So we're trying to meet that. We hope to have a better update on that in the next month.
So in your initial discussion, you said TNDC has 40 properties with 4,000 units, is that right?
Yeah, 43
And how many residents?
58.
58. So most of those are 1-bedroom or studios.
In the past, yes, that has been.
So TNDC basically has relatively little experience with building this majority 2 and 3 bedrooms.
I think we have a lot of experience with managing and providing services to a lot of buildings. So again,
That wasn't my question.
I'm just saying that our services staff doesn't provide services just to our residents. We also provide services to people outside our building.
That still wasn't the question. The question was, if you have 4,000 units for 5,800 residents, that is less than 1.5 residents per unit. So that must be the majority of those buildings are studios or one bedroom.
The
Must be.
majority of our units are studios and
Yeah.
one-bedroom.
So TNDC in fact does not have much experience with projects that have majority 2 and 3 bedroom.
Why would that make a difference?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, because the type of building that they have proposed is by their description significantly different than the type of buildings that they've imagined.
But
so
for
far.
people, why would it make a difference in terms of having a single individual who might make use of services versus a small family who might need access to services?
Yeah, I wasn't talking about service.
Somewhat capacity.
I just, because that's a
Yeah,
reflection
I
also
mean,
of density.
like you said, you did the math, that is correct. I'll
Okay.
also say that, when a person is living in a studio or one bedroom, that doesn't mean that they're not a family. That could still be a
Right.
family living there. I'll just caveat that.
Yeah, that's the HUD definition, right? Okay.
Yes, please go.
I have a question. So I know that there's a lot of units, obviously 7 stories doesn't fit a lot of people. I'm sure you've been up to the site location, so we all have been there. The streets are like one lane this way, one lane that way, one lane, right? So what is the city going to do? Compensate all that traffic, right? Because all these people that come in, majority says it residents be dropped, right? So now you're gonna add a bunch of more people. We're gonna add all this congestion into these 1-2 lane street. What is the city doing to kind of compensate? Are you planning on doing any kind of compensation guys? Because you now have 11 parking spaces, maybe 25, but it's the street go this way.
Mhm. I appreciate that. I think we've heard that from several people. We have raised it with SFMTA, we have raised it with the supervisor's office as well. There's issues which are bigger than our project, which are present in the neighborhood, like what you're saying about the traffic and congestion. We've also heard concerns about the Tenderloin as well from other folks before. I think those are really things that we can help advocate for with the neighborhood towards the supervisor and the SFMTA. But we directly as a developer have very little control on what MTA does or what the city does in terms of traffic. So what we can do is, like, if there's a proposal or if there's anything that we're trying to get your voice heard to the supervisor, we can add our voice to that and try to advocate for me.
I'm sorry, that has been most of these, but it's very different, but has there been consideration knocking instead 7-4? Is there consideration?
For reducing the height of the
Yeah.
building. That was something which was brought up to us very early on. The project does not, there's just 2 things. One is just a tremendous need for housing. So I think there's a very strong push from the mayor's office. And we've also heard from several people in the neighborhood that they've written a lot of letters to the supervisor asking for maximizing density and maximizing the number of units and going deep with the targeting. And like I said before, I think when we try to go deeper with our targeting, we need to increase the number of units. At 4 stories, the project doesn't work. So we can't make 4 stories.
Has there been an environmental impact survey done?
So the project does not need to do like an EIA, the environmental impact survey. We have gone through a phase 1 process. As some of you who are in the immediate vicinity may know, there's existing PCEs on the site, and the Department of Toxic Substances Control is doing their own community input process, which we encourage people to participate in. We are signed up in a voluntary agreement with the Department of Toxic Substances Control.
And the homeowners, have they made any, made their presence known regarding the property values? How will this project impact the property values of the people in the neighborhood?
We have heard that, and I think based on our research and everything that MoCD has done and walked throughout the city, affordable housing does not increase property value.
Where is that research and where can it be accessed? If anybody wants to see it?
Definitely, I would directly do the mayor's office of housing. They collect this data on a very regular basis, and they are.
You don't have a direct URL or source right now, so you're passing it up to the mayor's office.
I would recommend you work with the mayor's office.
Thank you.
You mentioned that TNPC has a lot of contacts in the Tenderloin area. Now you're expanding to other districts. May I ask you, why do you have the privilege of having these contacts? Who are your competitors? How were you able to get the bid of this project? Question number one. Number two, based on your existing data, have you been evict any tenants? I want to echo some of the audience here that you have on-site manager, property management, one social worker, and if you have really bad tenant meaning they really harass the existing families. So based on your data, what's the percentage of eviction that you have done so far to deal with this situation?
Okay. So to answer your first question, in 2019, the city put out like a notice of funding availability, which specifically asked developers to submit proposals for a project in District 1, 4, or 7. We were the only respondent to that proposal. So we have a project in District 1 and District 4 as a result of that. So that's how we got the 2550 Irving site. So when that NOFA came out, we were looking for sites in these districts, and we found the site for the police credit union just through like a broker, like you go buy a house. We were looking for sites similar to that, and we're able to buy it from the open market. So we haven't bought the site yet. We're still in a purchase and sale agreement, but we hope to buy the site soon. In response to your second question, in terms of the number of evictions, it's very low. We do find that a lot of the issues with tenants are handled by a social services team and our property management team by talking to people. I will say that there have been times, it's not unheard of that we never evict people. I don't want to say that because I'm not a property manager. I think we do have that lever. We just don't use it very often. And we try to keep people as safely housed as possible because our mission is to house people, not to evict them.
So why is your company or your nonprofit organization the only bidder of the projects?
So that's a great question.
You have that strong backup by any politicians?
I don't think so. No, I think just typically in general, projects which are in districts 1, 4, 7, these are some of the newer neighborhoods where a lot of people have not developed in, a lot of developers have not developed in. Projects in such neighborhoods do take a lot longer and need a lot of resources and a lot of time to do so. I used to work for a developer. We used to develop in Marin County before, and it took years. And so I think an investment of time and effort from a nonprofit requires a lot of cost. And so I'm not able to speak for the other nonprofits who work in San Francisco, but I can say that Unity was prepared to do that. And that's why we put forward a proposal. I don't know about others and why they didn't. I can just talk about like, it does require a lot of time, effort, and investment from a nonprofit. It also requires a lot of risk-taking.
So on the project that you built, there are a lot of reports that will be examined. Based on what we know, the 2550 Irving Street, custody, density, and also the objections of the neighbors, the immediate neighbors. So GNDC is picking up this challenge. So you have experience before, or you got all the essential report before in other projects as well?
There's a combination of it. So the rule that we're talking about, it's called State Bill 35. That's a relatively new rule, which allows affordable housing to be streamlined. It doesn't mean that we're exempt from everything. We still have to submit an application to the planning department. They still have to see if we meet like objective design standards and objective criteria. And that helps us get approvals. That is a very new tool which the state basically implemented, and that was because of the large housing crisis, and projects took a very long time to get approved and get to the design and planning process. And that is why like it took 3-4 years to get a project to get to break ground. And that is why the state implemented that policy, and we're just taking advantage of that policy to help our project move forward.
My last question. For your nonprofit organization, do you have lobbyists who talks to other politicians to get this project done? Do you have that team? Because it will show up at the ethnic code. I mean, showing that you have lobbyists talking to certain politicians
We,
Have this team talking to anyone?
no, I don't think we don't hire lobbyists or anything like that. We have a team. So for example, my boss and our CEO have been working in the city for decades. The CEO of our company has been working in the city for like 20, 30 years. And my supervisor, direct supervisor, Katie Lamont, who I think some of you have met, she's been in the city for 10 plus years. We're just an organization who has been present. We are an organization who's present in the city. We are born in the city. We stayed in the city. We don't work outside of San Francisco. So we have been around for quite a long time, but we can't lobby. I don't think that's allowed at being an
Who gets your funding? Who funds you?
So we are funded by ourselves. We do fundraisers, which are just normal fundraisers. So that's a small part of our organization's capacity. When we manage properties and when we, as part of owning and operating the property, we collect the cash flow from the units, and we also take a management fee for managing the property, which helps pay for our staff managing the property. Basically.
So what is the dollar amount of your budget, your annual budget?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but since we're a nonprofit, you can probably like find that on.
But this is nonprofit, that your building is in average like a 1 unit per unit. So is this kind of the cost is extremely expensive for affordable housing. My question actually is like, you mentioned this project is like under the SB 35. So there's a lot of exemption for this project. But this particular project requires the neighborhood support. So I wonder, how do you do your outreach? Because sitting in this room, half of the rooms we are nearby neighbors. We have never, although you offer the Zoom meeting, but our input was never considered. None of our input are, yeah, none of our concerns are ever addressed. So even like for community outreach, I don't know how you fulfill your requirement on that piece, because we never received information directly from TNCC until lately, until a few days before the vote from the budget committee. That's when we received 2 flyers, I believe. That was all. So we are losing confidence on TNDC because you never work with that.
So I think there's 2 factors to it. The first one is what you're saying, that no, you don't feel that you've been heard. I think the biggest concern that we've heard in the neighborhood that we haven't been able to address is the height. That is something that we cannot address, and we are not going to be able to. So I think that is one thing that we have heard you, but there's limited things that we can do to mitigate that.
Yeah, but the point is, you never sincerely work with us. That is the issue now.
I beg to differ. I feel like we have had several community meetings. I will own up to the fact that they have been virtual, and that has been limiting to a lot of people. But we had meetings in January, in March,
Those are
and
just
April. And then we did polling, and we asked people for input for things that can be influenced in the project. And we asked.
Those are just so. How do you? Nothing. None of us ever address.
I would appreciate if people go one by one.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Because when you respond to when you say you are the only one is a submit a proposal. You say because the other labor will take a long time, right?
Just in general, development take a long time.
It's the reason you can on secret. That's why you can purchase the land and also submit a proposal within 1 month. That's the reason you can secret.
So I think
you have experience. If the labor low, the mill will take a long time, right? That's why you can in secret.
So I want to clarify something. So people, I think we've heard a lot from people that, you had this proposal, you submitted this proposal, and you didn't have to. The reality is that we submit proposals for RFPs and queues on a very regular basis to the city. It's not always that we get awarded. So when we submit a proposal, it doesn't mean that we're going to get funding. So we don't start working with the neighborhood until after we hear that we have received an award, because we don't know how many other people are going to compete for that funding. And if we didn't have the funding, that project would have died at that moment, basically. We wouldn't have been able to move forward. And so that is the reason that we don't start engaging with the community until after we know that we have some ability to move a project forward.
You don't want to hear that against the project. That's right.
I think the supervisor has heard.
It's a forward to represent our labor.
I will just say that the supervisor has definitely heard from a lot of people in this room directly. We've had like 2 meetings where I have been present. I think that has been specifically for immediate neighbors, especially members of the MSNA and the SCA. And so I think a lot of you have been present. We also had like the shadow impact meeting in person. So I beg to differ.
When you said like you did like involve the immediate neighbor, this is 100% fall. Because we've been into the neighborhood, we go around in the neighborhood and 800 immediate neighbor have signed that they need this project to be modified, or they don't want this project. So I don't know how you get your support first for this project to fulfill the requirement. Can you tell us? Can you tell us, or what are we missing?
We have just, what we did was just put out word that there is this project among District 4 through our networks and our channels. We haven't done that directly as an advocate. There's other organizations, there's other neighborhoods.
No. When you submit
That's 1 year later, not on the.
May I just add?
Yeah, please go.
I mean, I know everyone's been getting pretty heated here, but I haven't heard, what are your considerations that you would want to modify this project?
Let me echo what Chrissy just mentioned. You said that you cannot address the height of the building. As a matter of fact, the height of the building does impact the immediate neighborhoods. The lifestyle, the shadow that put on the existing single-family home, that is the main issue, one of the main issues. But the key thing is you cannot address it.
That is
One
correct.
stop, you cannot move forward, but yet you avoid that. So when I build my little house, with just little extension, I had to do my shadow study, making sure that winter time, summertime, how many hours that the shadow will be on top of their skylight. And I had to do that. Why law has to address to 2 different things that you can get away from it. The law, the building code require us to do it as normal residents. Right? But this is high hypocrisy. This is unacceptable. The immediate neighbors needs to be concerned about the project and the height of the building. The step number 1 is already non-negotiable. So it seems like you're not willing to work with the neighbors. So that's what, I think this is very stunning to me, because initially I support affordable housing. I do. I told Supervisor Ma that I want supervisor to understand that affordable housing is a need. And I know why we have housing crisis. We have a lot of basement, we have ground floor that can be built to rent. But then we have a lot of abusive tenants. We have attorneys who can give you free advice, and then they can, drain the equity of the single family home seniors to their lifetime savings. So I support that. That's my standpoint. But then when I understand from all these 2 meetings, I am not in depth. But the more I heard about your response and neighbors' concern, I understand why this project is so controversial, hypocrisy, and unwilling to work with our neighbors.
I wouldn't, go ahead.
Well, I'm just thinking like shadows have, I was one thing that I thought of right away. I mean, I know there's other buildings in that area that are quite tall.
Yes,
20th and Irving, there's one 20th and Irving, there's one 16th and Lincoln, I know that. But I was just concerned, like, have you thought of maybe terracing or possible courtyards, something like that brings more sun into, helping with neighbors?
That's what they want to do.
So this is a mapping study. I'll just be clarified that this is a mapping
Look at
study.
the
about
little
the
houses, that's good.
This is
There's no home space to the other
If
building.
you can put on
that's
projector, please, that
But
existing.
isn't
We don't-
TNDC
look at
part
that.
of CART SF?
That's the problem.
Isn't TNDC part of CART SF?
Oh, this one.
Say it again.
Isn't TNDC part of CART SF?
I'm not sure. Sorry.
Okay, CART SF is a group of organizations that have been trying to defund the police. That's another really big concern, and I saw TNDC as one of the members of that coalition that want to defund the police. This makes me really concerned about the security of this area, especially with the rising crimes on Irving Street. One of my friends owned a restaurant right there, and his windows to his restaurant was broken just last month, not just once, but twice. And this is gonna be 1 block away from his restaurant. And you guys support to fund the police. This is really scary.
I honestly don't know if that's true or
I
not, so
don't
I don't
believe
wanna.
that's
say
true.
out of time.
I don't
Well,
believe.
go
that's
on,
true.
go on cartsf.org and check it out, because you guys are on the list, and I know that.
I'll check it out, yeah.
So, Shira, I just wanted to make a point, I come from a design background in Utah.
Yeah.
But my concern really is about the humanity of putting people in a tower, their families. We have records, we have buildings that have been torn down because they haven't worked. And I know you said it's not public housing, but it is the same model. You're putting people in a 7-story tower with dark long corridors. I have the plan with hardly any light. These are families in a dark corridor in a tower. Now, we have examples. Valencia Gardens, private entries. These are families. These are needy families, 3 to 4 stories, private entrance, private backyard. This builds community, it builds dignity, it helps people become part of the community. They have a sense of home. This is the example, and I keep showing this to you. This is what the people in our neighborhood have felt and talked to you about. Why? This makes sense. Regarding the financials, there's tons of red flags. There's been no independent audit. We've given Ward Mar several examples of vacant places in Sunset, destitute houses that we can fix up. We are very happy to have 30 of these projects all over the Sunset at the right size that truly house people with dignity. That's the real concern here. And I know we've been badmouthed and just pushed off by the press. No one's paying attention. They want to say we're NIMBY. That is not the case. We have studied these things. The National Housing Institute will tell you this is the model. That's why the palace was torn down. What do we have to do to call attention to the fact that we care about housing families properly? Why would you just shove this down people's throats? It's not the right thing to do. If the 7-story doesn't work, if your financial model doesn't work, we need a better financial model. And we've given you examples of that. We can take houses, we can put families in these houses faster than you will be able to build this tower, that tower, and put people in dark corridors. And we've given you all the alternatives. We are willing to help you with this. We've talked with Supervisor Mark, we've talked with you, and we are ready to help.
I appreciate your comment, Kathleen. I think one of the things that I just want to point out is it's not the first 7-story building being built. I know it's the first one in a while in this neighborhood, but there have been several affordable housing projects which are very successful, which have this.
I agree with you, but you have to look at the context. A monster. Look at the map that we just handed out.
Yeah,
They're
I mean,
not
I
next- they're not
know
next
what
to
you're talking
200,000.
Yeah, each site, yeah, as an architect, each site has to be considered individually. It's a holistic view. If it weren't for SB 35, you would have an architect looking at the site, you would be doing a safety study, a traffic study, an environmental study. You'd be doing all those things to make sense out of what is proposed there. And you would say, any architect would say that nothing over 4 stories would make sense on a site that size for families.
I appreciate the perspective, but going back to what you were saying in terms of humanity, we don't think we're creating housing which will not be received well. I think I think there's several examples of buildings being that tall and being very successful and people liking to live. So I'll just say that.
I was just thinking on the terms of, I'm seeing that side. I am seeing the massing models that you've shown, and that is pretty jarring. But there are, in this new reality where, like potential new housing is going to be somewhere in those heights. I know they want to densify the Sunset, the west side of the city. I think that in my own personal feeling, I do have a little bit of design background myself too, is that it does seem kind of large. It could use maybe some crenellations to break down those hard lines so that shadows can be, mitigated to some degree.
Yeah.
And also like courtyards, just maybe more open spaces in it. It might cost more to build. Maybe the amount of density might be less. But I agree. I think there's other sites in the Sunset that could be offered,
One of the things,
to help mitigate, housing affordability issues.
yeah, we appreciate that. I think one of the things that our architect did in order to address some of the shadow issues is they pulled the building back on the north side of the block. So it is pulled back, and we have created kind of a backyard which is aligned with the current neighbor's backyard. That does help mitigate the shadows. In some seasons, it's less than the existing buildings just because we pull back the building. So we are trying to look at it. I hear what you're saying in terms of trying to step back up on the top or something like that.
Put it down at angles,
We're
steps,
still-
tiers.
We're still kind of studying that. Like you said, like we just got our financing. We just got approval to start kind of moving forward with our design process. So we are in that phase right now. Where we're looking at all of those different things.
Is there, do you know where your break point is as far as like you're saying there's 98 units and the state considers that if a project has more units, it's more favorable in their eyes? What's kind of the break point?
This is the sweet spot. This is the sweet spot. 98 is the sweet spot, and that's why we're here.
It's the only answer though, except with suggested list. And Eric Shaw has said specifically, the only model that works with the state financing is 100 units and 7 stories. And so therefore, that's why they say we can't negotiate that. So I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's the answer from them. Am I stating that
That is
correctly?
Yeah.
I mean, Eric Shaw said that in public. So it's,
Randy
so,
Shaw.
pardon me?
Randy Shaw.
No,
No,
Eric
no,
Shaw, the
Eric
director of the
Shaw.
mayor's office.
Oh,
Not Randy Shaw.
Randy Shaw, the director of PNC.
Oh, he's
No, he's
not.
not.
No, oh, really? Was.
I have one practical question is, I'm confused about the income stuff, because when you say the AMI will be between 2,700 and 2,000 household income, if I did that right. But then you're saying 25% are formerly homeless. Are these 25% formerly homeless people who now have more than 27,000
No,
AMI?
no.
How
So-
does that fit? You understand my
Yeah,
confusion?
yeah, I do. So I think for people who have former experiences of homelessness,
I'm sorry.
for people who have former experiences of homelessness, they could have zero income all the way up to the $27,000 number. It really depends. The city has a special funding program which helps offset their income. It is not like it's not like Section 8 or Part 3 vouchers, but the city helps them with. They pay whatever they pay 30% of the income. It could be 0, it could be 10,000, it could be 1,000. We don't know until we get whatever application. And the city has a program which helps us make whole for what we're not collecting, basically, based on our.
So it's transfer payments, but in effect, so that it's not that 100% of the residents will be between 2,700 and 2. 25% or more might will very well, probably. I assume if they're formerly homeless, they don't have an income of more than 27.
They wouldn't have an income of more than 27. If they do, then they would qualify for the units between that 27 to 102.
Okay,
If
but
that
so-
makes sense. But
Well, it
for-
does, but
yeah.
the
But
building will
for
not be 100% people between 27 and 102.
the 25% formerly homeless units, their incomes really vary, and they're very likely going to be less than 27,000.
Okay. So I'm just,
And
so this is to say that all the residents will be between 27 and 102 is a false statement. Which I think that's what you said.
I'm saying that's
If I
the
was-
range
if I
of
was-
income levels for screening people.
All right.
basically.
Okay.
Folks, we're 20 minutes over on this particular segment of our meeting. And I want to catch back up. I know this is going to be a hot topic, but it's also something that I think that everyone needs to air out opinions, and thank you, that informs me as well, you know. But I do need to move on to the next subject. Shreya, I want to say thank you very much for enlightening us, and I'm sure we'll have further discussions.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, thank you, and say hi to Jenny for me.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay,
And for the special population, we do still have plans to increase the ratio. When you apply for the state or federal funding, you still take, right? Because on the 19th, the meeting, you still say 20%. But today you say 25%.
The number is not
And that
consistent.
means that you
I'm sorry?
I mean, like I said, our financing plan in terms of the exact population will change. Right now, we're penciling 25% for formerly homeless.
Okay. Sorry, thank you. We're in. Sorry, madam, we're gonna end this part of the meeting. We're already 20 minutes over. So, but thank you. Okay, so anyway, this is,
I'll still hang out.
Huh?
If you don't mind, I can
Oh,
just sit, yeah.
please. The rest of it's gonna be way more boring.
No worries.
I just want to bring this up that we're trying to retask ourselves to, see where we can help merchants best in our neighborhood on Taraval Street, but also, D4 wide. And so we did send out some, surveys to merchants as to how POPs can, pivot ourselves or continue on the road that we're doing, just promoting business and offering help to small businesses and our community the way we're going now, or should we, is there something else that's on the radar that we should help address and consider concentrating on efforts? So anyway, we did send out a survey, but we did get very small response. I understand everyone's busy, but I was gonna, since I have you guys here, you're my guinea pigs. I was just wondering, just quickly, if you guys see anything that we can help out on as POPs.
I think a lot of local businesses need alarms. So, and I know there is an
Security.
organization, I believe it's open trying to kind of fundraise for their businesses to get like alarm systems. I think that'd be a great, because a lot of you have been hit by COVID, right? So they can't have the money for alarm. I'm not talking about personal alarm, but actual like mounted like
Right.
kind of thing. So I think that would be,
Burglary alarms.
yes.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think that the
John.
merchants need some assistance in understanding how you create a commercial environment that is not only vibrant, but also is safe and it's inviting. We had a project at Irving Street from 19th to 26 that involved the DPW, and that was a disaster because in a very similar fashion, the city approached the project by holding community meetings that really as merchants really need a lot of help in terms of how you create an image that attracts shoppers to your area, how you invite them to have restaurants that are very appealing, and how you create a vibrancy for the community to really be engaged one of the things that does that is the proximity of the shops to the residents around them. It's a real problem, especially with this housing issue that we have today. But for example, right here we have a library that's got a park space next to it, and what could be done to attract people to that vicinity, as maybe, let's say, a park with some coffee shops or something like that, to really get people to congeal and to come together in a central location. There used to be, I think David King used to do some films in this park here.
That's our project.
Yeah, that was very nice. That's the kind of idea where you bring people into a commercial area to really give it a sense of center for the community, to really come together and celebrate what they have in common. So that sort of interchange, that sort of, you might want to call it a symbiosis between commerce and residents, is really something that really sustains a commercial strip.
Okay, all right, thank you. And
I think one response that we can do is that is in Chinatown, they have walkway weekend, so every Saturday they close down the street, right? And then they have that invited community that invites tourism, right? Obviously in the center we don't get any tourism, but we do, like I said, as a resident, it's mainly residents here, right? So maybe remember how you guys closed like 19th on Irving, like with the tea boxes, how that was closed off for like a few days a week. I think it'd be not a bad idea if we, with the farmers market every Sunday, we're having a thing on weekends or Friday nights where we close down the street, bring vendors, have the restaurants set up tables outside, have the arts and crafts controllers. That's a great way to bring people in while inviting community. Having a consistency people can look forward to really amplifies that. And seeing that I'm one of the younger people in this room, we love to go outside, and especially COVID, the Delta variant, you're gonna be more than 100 people. So walking the street.
Yeah, that's happening actually. So Angie T. Taylor, who runs the Sunset Mercantile Harvest Market,
The farmers market. Yeah.
she's expanded it to different days and different events to attract people. So she has an idea to do a night market, and she's bringing restaurants, engaging people in the community. So that is actually a place that we, an outdoor space that we've been able to kind of activate.
okay, go ahead, please.
Well, I have concern about the traffic here in Sunset District. 19th Avenue is still very, very bumpy. I don't know why we do not fix the road. It takes forever. And Sunset Boulevard is getting very congested, although we beautified the driveway of the sideway of the road. We saw the trend that they want to totally close down or shut down Upper Great Highway, which is a bad idea.
The mayor just announced today that the Upper Great Highway is going to open.
Good, because nobody is doing the traffic monitoring on Sundays, Saturday. People can enjoy, we can close it down. I have no problem with that, but then Monday through Friday, how many people are using those Upper Great Highway? This is totally bad.
Yeah, it's not even.
I was
It's
just in February, but
yeah, but it was just announced today, so it was a brand new news.
19th Avenue is being worked on currently, so that's why there's so much construction.
Somebody has been big promise a long time ago, maybe 20 years.
There's a lot of construction.
It's supposed to, I know with SFMP, they're projecting 2 more years.
Just to be clear, we do not handle traffic, we only have,
No, this will also impact our Sunset District. Sure. And the Muni has the platform that occupies the parking space, the merchant
I understand.
has been harmed too.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, thank you.
I assume you resisted the Taraval elimination of parking spaces up and down.
Oh, yeah.
I used to shop on Taraval because I could drive and park, and I just don't go anymore.
I-
Irving, because
I know.
Beauty isn't gonna get me there in my lifetime, so. It's a non-starter, which is really unfortunate. I think it's probably, you probably know far better than anybody, but I think it's probably really hurtful.
We've been on the negotiating side of that since 2015. October of 2015. I remember the day they walked in my store and presented the map.
You
Yeah.
run into an equally responsible.
Oh, I had a SHIT fit. So anyway, Howard,
Oh, yeah, just to echo something you said. I spoke with the owner of the Deli King and the owner of Strata Pizzeria. They both said they would like to have something where they can do here on Taraval. They cannot physically go to Sunset. They don't have the equipment or personnel to go to the Sunset Farmers Market and set up and adequately, present their food and sell them. So they would rather, if it's possible to do it here in Taraval. And on top of that, as I mentioned, that something like the night market here, a night market, something to bring folks here and call it something like, I moved here, I found out, oh, there's a jazz festival, there's this festival, street fair, whatever. And I'm from New York, and we used to have my area, we used to have 2 street fairs a year, and it was like 2 miles long. It would bring like thousands of people, what have you. And it's something that attracts people, and then you need that thing, call it something, and then people will come. You just set it up with all the locals. There's only so much folks in the area going to go down and buying or whatever. You need folks from outside and call it something. I think the fact that you kind of call the area something, just like you call that outer Taraval, third side or have you.
Each side.
So, call it something, then come up with some kind of event, more people, and that park is a great area to set up things as well.
all right. Thanks, Howard. Anybody else with that?
Yeah, alongside
No, no,
public safety, Jay talked about the security alarms. I also think of, on the same line, security cameras.
Yes.
Are there a lot of security cameras?
Actually, yes, unfortunately, the police can say that they can't be everywhere at once and to our, dismay. But, a lot of times when crimes happen, they want footage. And I will say, we actually had to talk about this one time, one of our meetings. And there was a little bit of a crime spree on Taraval Street, and we did catch some criminals with cameras. But one of the things that I think a lot of merchants are getting wrong is they're putting them way up there. Okay, if I've got a baseball hat and I've got this mask on, you're not going to see anything.
Yeah.
Right. So, right, exactly. So, like having it at that height where you can really get somebody's face is better. Also on the street, if you don't have anyone. I mean, even if you can't catch the perpetrator, you can at least catch the cars going by and get license plates. HD cameras are very important because they can zoom in on those license plates.
I think,
Sir.
yeah, I think the thing would be automatic. So that way you can flag.
Yeah, I don't know if we can. I don't know if I have that kind of pull. Sorry.
A lot of mobile cars. So if you have automatic. That would be real helpful.
We can bring that up to the police.
We can.
Yeah.
Or we can do it all.
Well, right now, Supervisor Mara's office is trying to come up with a program that will supplement or offer not a refund. What do you call it? Just a reimbursement for a rebate, something like that, partially for your camera purchases. I think he's got about $50,000 in the kitty to do something like that right now. So if you're to buy something like a $500-600 system and you could get $300 back, that helps you out. It softens the blow to put up the security, but it looks like security cameras are the way to go these days. Okay, thank you for that. Any more input? All right, I will take all that into consideration because we're trying to get back up on our feet again. We didn't have movies this year. We had them for 10 years. But we're going to bring, like right now, I tried, but it's just like the overall COVID restrictions were so much that I was just like, forget it. But I'll tell you next year, if we're out of this, the popcorn machine's coming back, the free food's coming back, the hot chocolate, the water, movies, actors, participants, stormtroopers, you name it. I want to bring everybody back. Okay, and then, yes.
So, in the news this week, the cultural district, Chinese cultural district was just approved.
Yes.
And so we'll, looking forward to the development
Yes.
of programs related to that.
So the first thing that they're planning is, I guess we are planning is the Autumn Moon Festival. So back in, actually in the space on 37th Ortega, we will be doing a Autumn Moon Festival event there. And so the Chinese Cultural District will sponsor it, but it's just sort of, you know, to kind of have an overarching label, but we'll, you know, the Wame, Pops, and some other organization there. And it'll be on September 15th, but we're very much in like the planning phase.
September 18th.
15th, it's a Wednesday,
15th.
15th, it's 3 to 7 p.m. It's actually like a midday to early evening night market or market. And we already, 37.
Yeah, right by SI. If you want more information, I would recommend reaching out to Lee Lovett, the Supervisor Mars office. She's been handling a lot of the Chinese Cultural District projects.
And I'll just say that any of you that are merchants or you know some people that are in business right now, especially Asian businesses, we're trying to promote this event because it is the beginning. So we're not trying to create it as a continuation of previous autumn moon festivals. You know, this is one that is, we're going from this newly formed Sunset Chinese Cultural District. So there are Asian businesses, and this is not exclusively the Chinese. It's gonna, you know, everyone has had a participation in here. But to make it more of an Asian themed event, we're trying to think of like this first one's gonna be small scale. Just maybe a couple booths at the market, but if we can get, you know, if we can get businesses that will offer vouchers or maybe some swag that they can give out for the event, you know, like handbags, pens, you know, a cup, or maybe like a coupon to your restaurant to get, or to your place to get a free boba tea, you know, just so that people will come visit patronize the businesses. That'll be the way to go. And then we're planning to hopefully come with something a little bit more elaborate next year. Because at this time, the Sunset Chinese Cultural District approval was so late in the legislative season, I guess, that we just didn't have enough time to do a big event for this year. Okay, so.
Who do we contact if we want to get a booth? How much is it?
Contact Lee Lovett, the Supervisor Mars office.
Do you love it?
And then I guess we'll go to the last one, which is, and thank you for mentioning that, Barry. COVID-19, Delta variant. So I guess I can only stress that, you know, like we're all back to, you know, when I wrote the agenda, there wasn't even the mandate yet, but I guess now we're all back to mandates. But I did hear that, you know, I've got some, you know, word that they're not planning to at least shut everything down this time. The likelihood of a full closure is unlikely, but masks, not even social distancing is a real big requirement at this point, but having the masks up, getting vaccinated is very important. Because the first time around, we had no cures except the, you know, social distancing and the masking and so forth and staying home. But now it's really trying to keep each other safe. You know, you may be vaccinated, but you can also carry a full load of the virus and pass it on to people that you care about very much. So, you know, do be safe out there, and do encourage your friends to continue to wear their masks, especially indoors. And I think that's all I have to say for that for now. Is there anything from NEMS to add to that, or?
You know, we're continuing to monitor the situation.
Yeah, it's still developing.
All right.
But yeah, so I'm also, you know, hoping that everyone will follow the rules. And then, okay, I think, is there anything else for anyone else to add to the meeting? Any announcements? No? Okay,
I
good.
just want to thank you. It's nice to have like a community meeting and talk about other things in the project.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
I will then call this meeting adjourned. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.
Let me ask the folks who are on Zoom. I couldn't hear very well as well.
Okay, folks.
Could you? Albert, hold on 1 minute.
Video is hard for some of you to hear.
Yeah, I think
I just want to ask the other people on Zoom. I had trouble understanding what people were saying, talking through their masks. especially people who are farther away than you were. I'm wondering if the few other people are still online, if you guys had problems.
Yeah, you're not the only one.
Yeah.
I've had problems.
I couldn't
Yeah,
hear.
I had problems too, Paula.
I couldn't hear.
Yeah, it's Eileen. I had problems too.
So-
Yes, and I apologize for that. We tried to get a camera. We tried to get a camera and a microphone set up, but we were not able to get it to work. So we were just basically working off my laptop and the limited capacity of that laptop.
Okay,
All right.
Well, thanks, Albert. That's fine. Yeah.
I know it's gonna take time for, you guys to work out the technology. I'm not ready to go anyplace indoors right now, so,
That's okay. Paula, you stay safe. That's the most important thing.
and you guys too.
All right.
But I'm gonna call it a night, but thank you very much. We'll try to work on the technology and get it working better next time. Robert, Peter, Paula, Kendra, Eileen, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, folks, have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.